Welcome to Lesson 2, the types and stages of a breach. In this module, you will learn about cybercriminals and why they are the #1 source for breaches and attacks against organizations. After completing this module, you should be able to define cybercriminal according to the industry standards of today, describe the ways in which cybercriminals pose a direct threat to the customer, illustrate through case studies specific types of cybercriminal breaches, and define and describe the stages of a data breach. There are three main threat agents or sources behind the majority of data breaches today. The focus of this module is cybercriminals, whose actions are by far the top driver of data breaches and records lost in organizations. The other groups accounting for data breaches are well-meaning insiders and malicious insiders, both of which are covered in other modules of this course. In general terms, cybercrime refers to crimes committed through or against computers, their associated networks, and the information contained within them. While attacks using and against computers have been prevalent for decades, the rise of the Internet has transformed the sphere of criminal activity. In the same way that the Internet has offered tools and opportunities in business sectors such as banking and finance, it has also evolved and expanded the resources and targets available to criminals. Using some of the key characteristics of the Internet, cyber attacks can be mounted anonymously and cheaply from anywhere in the world. While hackers in past used tools such as email-borne viruses or so-called worms that could bring down databases, the motivation behind the activity was often to get fame and notoriety within the community. The cybercriminal of today is motivated much more by the financial potential of capturing corporate information and data assets such as credit card information and intellectual property. Other motivations for cybercriminal groups and individuals include revenge, sabotage, or blackmail. Increasingly, the cybercriminal of today is part of an organized crime group that is working together with the same intention, much like the mafia. Over the past few years, we saw several major breaches, such as TJ Maxx, Heartland, and others, that were conducted by organized crime groups. The cybercriminal can also be an individual with malicious intent. In recent years, we saw the arrest of the Spam King, who acted alone but profited from his marketing company sending out spam. 91% of all compromised records were linked to organized criminal groups. Cybercrime does not always target data. We've seen many cases of attacks against government websites by organized crime groups. As such, cyber attacks are becoming a growing threat not only for corporations and individuals, but also for countries and government agencies. Cybercriminals pose a significant threat. Sending spam or unsolicited bulk email is considered a crime in many regions. The effects can be felt in terms of increased load on systems, loss of productivity, and system compromise. According to Symantec researchers, in recent years there was a 9-fold increase in the number of spam emails that had malware attached to it. 1.95% of all email was spam. And Symantec recently observed that spam has increased by over 200% from 207 to current days. Fraud and identity theft is a key threat. Attackers have developed sophisticated malicious programs to steal sensitive information such as online banking credentials and credit card numbers. Often the cybercriminal uses social engineering tricks through forged emails and websites to get users to unknowingly install malicious code, which will show to the cybercriminal vital information from inside the network. Targeted messages are also used to get users to show IDs and passwords that are then used to gain access to systems and information. Another larger threat category is information theft and intellectual property loss. Cybercriminals target and extract a company's own financial and other valuable corporate information. For example, a team from Russia stole 130 million credit cards and debit card numbers from 5 companies, including Heartland Payment Systems, 7-Eleven, Hannaford Brothers, and TJX. Another example is the Bonanno organized crime family in New York that led the attack on LexisNexis and stole 14,000 records. Cybercriminals can use exploits to disrupt a key service. An example would be a virus or another attack that targets corporate email and web servers, leading to so-called denial of service attacks that can shut down vital business operations. Service disruptions can also have national implications with politically based attacks, cyber terrorism, and theft of sensitive data. This slide covers just a few of the threats posed by cybercriminals or organized criminal enterprises using computers and the internet. Online pornography, money laundering, and others are just a few of other examples. In a study performed by the Verizon Business Risk team that was done on the large-scale data breaches that occurred, most of them the cybercriminal was able to exploit based on careless mistakes. Most of the breaches allowed the cybercriminals to gain access to a system through default user accounts or unpatched systems. Once inside the network or on the system, the cybercriminal used more sophisticated means of collecting data using sniffers or keyloggers. Over the last few years, we have seen many data breaches by cybercriminals. These breaches were mostly targeted at financials where credit card data was the target. Malware or other methods are used by these cybercriminals to gain access to an organization and capture the data. This slide summarizes the flow of a typical large-scale breach. The target in this case was a set of card processing companies. A group of cybercriminals broke into these companies using an SQL injection attack, which is an attack that exploits the failure to properly validate user input in web applications or front ends. Once the attackers gained access, they were able to download a malware or exploit code that they hid using a rootkit. The malware sniffed traffic on the network, grabbing data that represented credit card information. The malware contained a backdoor that allowed the criminals to gain access into the environment to collect the data that was grabbed on the network and stored locally. Overall, this sequence of actions led to the theft of more than 280 million records. A typical data breach conducted by a cybercriminal consists of 5 discrete stages. First, we have recon, where the attacker identifies vulnerable users or resources with access to valuable assets. Next is incursion, where the attacker tries to gain access into a company. Then the discovery stage, where the cybercriminal looks across the network to determine where the valuable assets are within the company and how well protected they are. The next stage is the capture phase, where they get a hold of those assets. And finally, we have exfiltration, where they move the assets out of the company. We will elaborate on these stages in the following modules. In terms of key takeaways, we learned that the cybercriminal of today is more likely to be part of an organized crime group or malicious actor seeking financial remuneration rather than hackers of the past who are after fame and notoriety. We also saw that cybercriminals pose serious threats, and we noted several cases where cybercriminals breached an organization and seized sensitive data. Finally, we can now state the 5 discrete stages of a data breach, which are recon, incursion, discover, capture, and exfiltration.